Now, I want you to take a moment and think. Think deeply and profoundly about the type of life that you deserve, the kind of future that you desire. I want you to do yourself a favor here. And I want you to be as specific and clear as you possibly can. Because specificity and clarity of desire is of paramount importance. Now, with that image firmly in your mind, I would next ask that you think about how. How will you bring about or create that kind of life that you desire, the future you believe you deserve? Will it come naturally, or will there be some work that's required to obtain it? Now, I don't want you to focus on the individual steps that you would have to do in order to make it happen. Just simply think about the broad method that you will choose to obtain your heart's desires. Now, if you're someone who stated that you believe some work will be required to bring about the type of life that you desire or the type of future that you believe you deserve, I next ask the question of who? Who do you believe will do the work? It might help you to think in terms of what role or responsibility the important people in your life have. What role or responsibility, if any, do your parents, your teachers, your coaches, your co-workers, your boss, your siblings, your advisors, your pastor, even your children, what role or responsibility, if any, do they have in helping you create the type of life that you desire? Now I'd like you to think about yourself. That is, what responsibility, what role do you have in bringing about the type of life that you desire, in being the person that you aspire to be, to do the things that you long to do? What role or responsibility, if any, do you have in making it happen? Now, you may be asking, why the questions? And I believe that there's a saying that many of you have probably heard or maybe even used yourself, that I believe helps us to get started with this speech today. And it goes something like, if you keep doing what you've always done, you will keep getting what you've always gotten. And if you want to change the outcomes, you change your responses. You change what you do. And in that spirit of change, I would like to begin today to explore the concept of personal responsibility with two objectives in mind. First, I need for you, the listener, to begin to think differently about the concept of personal responsibility. At the same time, I would like for you to begin to develop some of the basic skills necessary for you to become more personally responsible in your own life, in your own quest to have the things that you desire, to be the person you aspire to be, or to do the things that you long to do. Begin to develop the skills necessary to make it happen. Now, in order to accomplish my first objective, I'm going to look at what personal responsibility is and why it is important. At the same time, in order to accomplish my second objective, I'm going to begin to have a pretty detailed conversation about the 4 broad steps that one can begin to do today to bring about the ability of taking more responsibility in one's life. So to begin, I want to start by saying that if you are someone who believes that to get the type of life that you desire, to have the type of future you believe you deserve, if you believe that it will come naturally, then I must say that you're going to be disappointed in the information that I'm going to share with you today. Because in Montabas Academy, we operate from the premise that meaningful, prosperous, successful lives don't just happen. They happen because an individual is committed and willing to do whatever is necessary to do some work in order to bring about that reality. Now, if you're also someone who believes that in order to get your heart's desires, that some work will be required, then I must say that you might be equally disappointed in what I'm going to share with you today. Because there are some who will instantly accept the truth in the message. There are some who may initially challenge today, but later on come to realize its significance. And then there will be those who will forever fight it. But you, not your parents, not your teachers, not your coaches, not your co-workers, not your ministers, not your advisors, not your brothers, your sisters, your siblings, your kids, no one but you are 100% responsible for creating the type of life that you desire, to bring about that future you believe you deserve. You. 100% you. Now, those other important people in your lives can and will help you get there. They may even help provide the resources necessary, but it's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility. You, 100%. Now, you can fight this statement if you want. But once you come to realize and accept the truth in the message, one of 2 things will happen. You will be compelled to act in a way that demonstrates the significance of your desires. Or you will be resigned to admit that the thing which you say you desire the most, you don't want it badly enough to act upon it. Let me repeat. Once you realize and accept the truth in the statement that you are 100% responsible for creating that life that you desire, the future you believe you deserve, then one or 2 things will happen. You will either be compelled to act in such a way that demonstrates the significance of your desires, or you will simply be resigned to admit that the things which you say you desire are not important enough to compel you to act. Because just think about this. If you were like most people that come to realize that to get the things that you want in life is 100% your responsibility, you will begin to do the things that you do in other areas of life where you have accepted that responsibility. You will begin to act today. And once in action mode, you will begin to affirmatively move in the direction of achieving your heart's desires. And as a consequence of action, as a consequence of being in that action mode, there is a greater probability, not a guarantee, but a greater probability that you will achieve it. Now, with that statement firmly in mind, the next logical question to explore is how. That is, how can you go about taking 100% responsibility for creating that life that you desire, for being that person you aspire to be, for doing the things that you long to do, for having the future that you believe you desire? How? At Montebass Academy, we do a lot of research. And doing our research, we've discovered a book, or come across a book by Jack Canfield entitled The Success Principle. And in this book, Jack has a section that speaks poignantly on what it means to take 100% responsibility in our lives. And this is a four-step process that we have adapted ourselves at Montebass Academy, because it really hits home the point of what a person must do in order to become more responsible for crafting, creating, generating the type of life that we desire and believe we deserve. And those 4 points are: no longer blaming others, no longer making excuses for oneself, no longer complaining about that which we have no control over, and beginning to take purposeful action to make it happen. As I start with these 4 points, I want to begin with the first one, which is no longer blaming others. And begin this portion by asking, why do we blame others for the lacks in our lives, for what we don't have, or who we're not, or where we're not? Why do we blame others? Because ultimately, what are we doing when we blame someone else, or make our lives responsible, or make someone else responsible for the circumstances, the conditions, the quality, or even the direction of our lives? Are we not saying that that person, or giving that person sole responsibility and power over giving, providing, creating the type of future that we desire? Why? And whenever we do that, what happens when that person does not deliver on our expectation? Do we not get disappointed? Do we not get frustrated? Do we not get resentful when the person, understandably, fails to deliver on what we think or believe they should be doing? But aren't all of these negative and debilitating feelings avoidable? I mean, because just think about this. Why should we make it someone else's responsibility to create the kind of life that we desire? Why? As I thought about that question, the only plausible explanation that I can give is that we either don't believe in ourselves, or we don't believe in our capacity to make it happen. Now, if this is the problem, then, or if this is the case, then we don't necessarily have a responsibility problem, we have a belief problem. And if that is the case, unfortunately, that is a topic or reserved for a later conversation. So I'd like to ask today, as we begin to really think about why we blame others, think about who or what do we normally blame for where our life is or is not today, what we have or what we don't have today, who we're not or who we're not today. Now, I don't necessarily want you to think about the whys of blaming, just the who and the what. Who and what do we normally blame? Now remember, in taking 100% personal responsibility, the first step is to no longer blame others. Because when we stop blaming others, or when we stop making it someone else's responsibility to create the type of life that we desire, we place the focus solely on ourselves where it should be. But if you begin to find all kind of reasons for why you can't and why you haven't done what you know you need to do up to now, you still will be falling short to take 100% responsibility for making it happen, for obtaining your heart's desires. You know, I read somewhere the other day that making excuses is a way of getting someone to cut us some slack, to overlook a certain type of behavior that is normally inappropriate in that particular situation. But think about this for a moment. Why should anyone, including ourselves, give us a pass for not doing that which we know we should be doing to bring about our heart's desires? Why? If we don't want to do the hard and difficult work necessary to create that future, then why don't we simply admit that the thing which we say that we desire, we don't want it badly enough to compel us to act or to take the matters into our own hands? Because if you did want it badly enough, you will find a way to make it happen. And if you don't know the way, you will discover the way. And once you discover the way, you will execute it. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. But if you keep finding reason or excuses for why you still have not done what you know you need to do, then you will never have it. You will never have it. So, in wrapping up this point about making excuses, I want you to begin to think about what excuses do you normally give for why you have not done what you know you need to do. Step 1 in taking 100% personal responsibility is no longer blaming others. Step 2, no longer making excuses for oneself or the lack thereof. Number 3, no longer complaining. I read in the dictionary that complaining is usually an expression of dissatisfaction or an annoyance with a particular state of affairs or an event. And I am sure that there are many who would agree with the statement that complaining is a great way of venting frustration. Granted, but complaining can also be a way of exacerbating an already tense or bad situation, particularly if we are complaining to someone who has no power or the ability to change the thing to which we're complaining about. I mean, just think about this for a moment. How do we normally respond to a complaint? Do we normally not take it personally? Do we not get defensive? Do we not then turn the table and begin to complain about what the person who's complaining is or is not doing? And isn't all of this a vicious cycle? I mean, is all of this necessary? I'm not here to really to discuss the pros and cons or the relative, merits or complexity of complaining versus not complaining. I mean, I would really leave that for other professionals who are licensed to do just that. What my goal today is to discuss how complaining tends to make us less responsible for bringing about the changes to our current situation. Because when we complain, like blaming, we're usually hoping that the person with whom we are complaining to can somehow bring about a desirable outcome. And again, in that situation, we're making it someone else's responsibility to bring about an outcome that we desire. And if this is your means of getting things done, one or two things will generally happen, because let's be honest here. People tend to fall short in delivering 100% upon the expectation of the things that we want. So when that happens, not if, but when that happens, one or two things will generally result from that. You might get more frustrated and begin to complain even more, or you might begin to use other means of getting what you want, either through manipulation or through coercion. And I must ask, are these the types of responses that's appropriate for someone who is seeking to take 100% responsibility for bringing about that life that he desires, to manifest that future you believe he deserves? Or are there other methods, other means of getting this done, such as no longer complaining? Now again, I want you to take a moment to think. Think about, who do you normally complain to, and what do you normally complain about? And I understand that for some, maybe for many, assuming 100% responsibility for things that we ultimately had no control over is very hard. But understand this. If you're looking to take responsibility for where your life is today and where it is not, for what you have or don't have, for who you are today and who you are not, this begins with no longer blaming others, no longer making excuses for one's behavior, no longer complaining about the things to which we have no control over. But it also involves taking purposeful actions to bring about the type of life that we desire, to be the type of person we aspire to be, or to do the things that we long to do, to achieve our heart's desires. Now, in his book, Jack Canfield goes on to state, and I quote, "We either create or allow everything that happens to us." In other words, the things we get or fail to get in life, the things that happen to us or fail to happen to us, are because we either took some action that led to that situation, or we failed to take action to prevent it from happening. When I read that the first time, it was very profound. I'm going to read this again, but I'm going to read it a little slowly, or read it more slowly. The things which we get or fail to get in life, or the things that happen to us or fail to happen to us, are because we either took some action that led to that situation, or we failed to take action to prevent it from happening. And again, I know that this is very difficult, and I know that it's a big pill to swallow to tell you to no longer, focus on what someone is or is not doing. No longer blame someone else. No longer make excuses for yourself. I understand that it's hard, but remember, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you will keep getting what you've always gotten. And if you want to change the outcome, you change your responses. You change what you do. This means instead of blaming others for what you don't have, begin to take the stance that while you can't change the past, and while you might not have had control over every aspect of your life, you can refuse today to hand over responsibility to anyone other than yourself to bring about your heart's desires. Instead of making excuses for yourself, begin to be honest with yourself and either do what you know you should be doing now, or simply admit to yourself that the things that you say that you desire, you don't desire badly enough to take matters into your own hands to make it happen. So be honest and either do it or admit to yourself that it's not important for you to do it. And instead of complaining about the things which you can't control, you simply accept them for who and what they are. And you move on to focus on those things which you have the ability to change. Now, if you must address the lacks of another person that has some responsibility or power to affect change, don't complain, simply make a request. And you can do so by stating what the request is, giving reasons for that request, and demonstrating what personal benefit the person granting the request might experience. Now, these last three steps are just concrete examples of what it means to take purposeful action to bring about your heart's desire. And I understand how difficult and how hard it is to do this. And as I was sitting, trying to find a way, and preparing for my speeches, I was trying to sit and find a way of how best should I begin to start to kind of conclude this, where essentially, I was looking for something to really epitomize the core message today. So I got online and I was looking for some famous quotes, and I'm almost done. I was looking for some famous quotes, and I spent maybe, an hour, 2 hours kind of going through some quotes, and nothing really struck me viscerally as, really epitomizing the message that, is in this speech today. So I took a moment and I sat back and I closed my eyes. And I began to think of my life. I began to think of all the books that I've read or the seminars that I've gone to. And it hit me, maybe about 10 or 15 minutes into that meditative state, that if it is to be, it is up to me. Think about that. As short as that statement is, it packs a punch. If it is to be, it is up to me. Because remember, to be whatever you want to be, to have whatever you crave to have, to do that which you long to do, or to live the kind of life that you desire or believe that you deserve, it all starts with you. It all starts with you taking 100% personal responsibility for making it happen. 100% personal responsibility. This means no longer blaming others, no longer making excuses for yourself, no longer complaining about that which you have no power to change, and simply focus on changing that which you do have the power to change. And start today to take purposeful actions to bring about the things you want, the things you believe, the things that you deserve. Because remember, if it is to be, it is up to me. Because if it is not you, then please tell me who.